That was nice. You turn in your books to page 79.
All right, good evening, everyone. Really quick, wanted to, because we did have to end last week, so because we have went over, we didn't have the time to do everything. If anyone had any comments closing for lesson 12, I'm just going to reread the last two questions. If you have something, you can spend the next 5 minutes flagging it. I'll read the last, well, two questions. One kind of added on page 70, but 77, question 5 was, when prayer does not change our circumstances, how can it change our attitude? We left off with that one. But 6 was, why do most Christians pray regularly for health, comfort, safety, and success? Are these bad things for which to pray? And then on page 78, it said, what if we begin to simply pray for God to be glorified no matter what? Is that difficult to pray? If so, why? Just wanted to open that up. So again, why do most Christians pray regularly for health, comfort, safety, and success? Are these bad things for which to pray? Some people did have some comments on that over the last couple of weeks. And then what if we began to simply pray for God to be glorified no matter what? Is that difficult to pray? If so, why? Just give opportunity a couple of minutes if anyone had anything to add to those questions.
Usually the things that go on in our life surrounds our health, comfort, safety, and success. Usually when we're trying to do certain things, I mean, we put in prayer request cards all the time for job changes, job promotions, jobs in general, and we're going somewhere we want, because of our highways, byways, and airways, we want safe travel. And when we're in situations where it may happen where we're around something that bodily harm or something may occur or something like that, we're always praying. So it's popular. It happens more than often. And it's just something that we seem to deal with collectively on a regular basis.
It makes sense, right? There's things that are on our minds and things that we deal with, especially in the way our society is structured. We kind of hit these things on a regular basis, so that perspective is a good one to highlight. Anybody else? Why do most Christians pray regularly for health, comfort, safety, and success? Are these bad things for which to pray? Once, twice? Yes.
No, we're not, but when I usually start my prayers, and I basically learn this, praise God, praise Him for a few minutes, for 5 seconds, about 10 minutes, and then I come in with my requests and things like that, and I'll praise Him. Hopefully you can miraculously cure these problems.
Yeah, that's a good kind of concept, because from the Matthew, when we were looking at chapter 11, if you remember, when Jesus was giving this example prayer that was in Matthew and Luke, he kind of starts off with giving God his due praise before even thanking him for the physical thing. So it's interesting that you're saying that in order, that you start off by giving God his praise and kind of thanking him for all the things that he did first and foremost before getting into any requests or anything physical, because that follows this structured flow of how Jesus was giving example of praise. So that's a good. Anybody else? Yes.
I think the chapter makes it a point to identify that Jesus' prayer was not along the same lines of self-comfort, but understanding of the grand scheme and understanding the importance of God's will to be done. That was the whole point, I thought. But perspective is lacking when it comes down to our day-to-day tasks. So I think that's what the book is trying to highlight, to make that distinction between, it's not a bad thing, but more in terms of like what the perspective is when it comes to prayers.
Good. Yep, this perspective, right? Your spiritual perspective. Seek first the kingdom and its righteousness, then all those physical things will be added. So that's a good point. Yes, Sister Dean.
Yeah, so to what David was saying, some people may think it's a bad thing because what you're asking for are physical things or things of this world. But I don't think it's bad, because God told us to bring all of our cares to him. And our health and our safety and even our success, so that we're able to take care of our family, are our cares. And so I think we are obeying a command when we pray to him to ask for those things. It's one thing though to ask and to pray about those, but it's another thing for those to be your focus, right?
Yeah.
So we can pray about them, but it doesn't have to be your focus. And then going on to the other question, if I may, why is it, or could it be a difficult thing to pray that God be glorified? And I think it's difficult for some of us. I know it is for me, for that blanket prayer, because God being glorified may mean some difficult choices for me to make in my life, right? It may mean for me to do some things differently than I'm doing now, and that is not always comfortable. And to be honest, sometimes I don't always want to do some of those things. So in praying for God to be glorified, I think it's somewhere that I ought to be, but I'm not there yet. But I think it's a great prayer, that always God be glorified in everything that we do.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting, especially when you look at lesson 11 and 12 together, right? With the example prayer and with the prayer in Gethsemane, with those two questions together, right? To be able to say, like, no matter what, after that strong prayer, your will be done and you will be glorified. And the cross-reference scripture from John that we looked at last week, where Jesus was saying, should I what? Kind of shy away from this reason for being able to come here and die on the cross? No, that's why I came, so that you would be glorified. That mindset is very mature, very difficult to do. So I agree 100%. Yes, sister.
Yeah, I think the things we pray for on a regular basis, like for me, life is very hard for everybody in one way or the other. And we have struggles all the time, from the time we wake up, even going to bed, because it's a constant struggle, and it's very difficult. And I think because we're in the flesh, we have to keep on praying for those things, because in the flesh we need them. And we need them to survive. I was having a conversation with Sister Buda today about success. There's nothing wrong with being successful. There's nothing wrong with getting an education. There's nothing wrong with getting a good job. There's nothing wrong with having a nice house. There's nothing wrong with being comfortable, right? Because you're in the flesh, so you want these things, right? And there's nothing wrong with it, but it is so hard. And that's why every day we are constantly praying, because in the flesh it is so difficult. And that's why sometimes when Brother Stanley talk about dying, it's almost like it's just a welcome relief. You know what I mean? Because it is so difficult in the flesh. And then the other side of it about glorifying God, I've been going through a situation at home for the last 2 weeks that has been weighing on me. I got to the point where I couldn't even pray. I was so upset. And Sister Beulah called me and said she would pray for me, because I couldn't pray. And one night I woke up around 3 o'clock. I had not been sleeping well. And I woke up and I just started thanking God. I didn't ask for anything. I just thank God. So the glorifying God part actually works, because the next day, everything just started falling in place again. And all I did the night, I didn't ask for anything. All I did was, thank you, God. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. Thank you. Just thank you for everything. and then everything fell in place. So sometimes it's like reverse psychology. God already knows what you want, and He knows how hard it is. And so that's all I can do, to say thank you.
No, that's true. Puts things into perspective, counting your blessings. Let's look at Romans chapter 8. This kind of sums up what everyone was saying. Romans 8, verse 5 through 11. Romans 8, verse 5 through 11. That kind of touches on the last several comments here, bringing these things like the balance, physical things, spiritual things, and a focus, kind of glorifying God. Romans 8, verse 5 says, "For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit, things of the Spirit." What does it mean to set your mind onto something? Right? Like, this is the part where when you are about to falling away, or fell away, you struggle with this. Because like most people that I know who have fallen away from the faith, right, who don't worship anywhere anymore, not just not coming to some specific place, hardly any of those people that I know stop believing in God. Right? It's way different than saying like I just turned into an atheist or a Muslim from a Christian, or I just don't go to a church anymore. Right? But they struggle with this verses because they don't realize that they have set their mind onto physical things, not spiritual things. Right? And that's the main thing. And then verse 6 says, "For to be," New King James says carnally, but your version may say fleshly minded, "is death." So it's telling you, like, if you set your mind according to the flesh, just realize that that mindset leads to death. But if you set your mind to spiritual things, verse 6 says, "Spiritual minded is life and peace," because the fleshly mind is hostile or enmity against God. For it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can be. So then those who are in the flesh cannot please God. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if indeed the Spirit of God dwells in you. Now, if anyone does not have the Spirit of Christ, he is not his. And if Christ is in you, your body is dead because of sin, but the Spirit is life because of righteousness. But if the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies through his Spirit who dwells in you. So let's just break this down. Go back up to verse 7. Because the physical mind is at war or hostile against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can be. So then those who are in the flesh cannot please God. Right? So that's the main thing that we have to focus on, is when you set your mind to physical things, you do physical things. The problem with that is that lifestyle leads to death, and therefore you cannot be pleasing to God, because anyone who is in the flesh cannot be pleasing to God. Okay, verse 9, "But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if indeed the Spirit of God dwells in you." Right? Holy Spirit dwells in you when you're saved. That's the whole concept of First Peter is talking about. You receive the Holy Spirit as a seal of a guarantee in your baptism, right? The same water is said that destroyed all the people in the world, saved those 8 souls in the boat. Now, namely, we have an antitype, that's baptism. So the issue there, though, is the Spirit of God inside of you, right? People quote, "God is for us, who can be against us?" But the verse says, if God is for us. God not for everybody, though. That's the part where people struggle with, right? Your lifestyle determines if God is for you or not, right? This is more like football open tryouts than the basketball team. Because in high school football, anybody could join, don't mean you're going to get playing time. But how you practice determines if you get playing time. Basketball is you got to make the team first. Because a Christianity is like what you put into it determines how you play on the team, right? That's just how it is. It's not like God is forcing people to do X, Y, and Z. It's their lifestyle is dictating if their focus is on physical thing or their focus on spiritual thing. And then verse 10, if Christ is in you, right, if the body is dead because of sin, because the Spirit is life because of righteousness, then you, to explain that, go back up to verses 5, 6, and 7. Right? If Christ is in you, the reason why your body is dead to sin, because the spirit of life in you is focused on righteousness, because physical mind and spiritual mind is at war. Some people succumb to that war, right? And that's when you fall away. But very rarely do those people say, well, it's not, I don't believe in God anymore, right? They struggle with their faith, but this passage here is very misquoted and it's hard to understand for some people, but this is really, you're deciding what path you're on. And that's the thing to focus on really into this year, because if you're having a bad day or bad times and things like that, what Sister Karen was talking about, just being able to take yourself out of that and then to start thanking God for the good things in your life, that's the power that you have. The problem is we give that power up to physical things. We allow physical things to shackle us spiritually, but we allow that, right? I allow that things that happened in my day to make it be a bad day. I could have went through the same negative things and still been in a good mood, but I chose, I gave my power to be in a good mood to physical created things. I did. God didn't make me. The devil didn't make me. Like, that was all on me. So where I set my mind, if you start the year off and say, I'm going to set my mind to this goal, because you're made in God's image, you literally can do anything. But first, you got to believe in your own self. So when Paul says no man hate his own flesh, to me, that plays into our prayer life. So I would encourage us into this new year is think about those things physical, right? Physical, emotional, and financial, and spiritual. To me, those four aspects make up every human being. Don't allow your physical, your emotional, or your financial situation to detract or negatively impact your spiritual self, right? Remember when Jesus was preaching and the disciples came and said, the people are hungry. He said, what? Feed them. Right? People are not going to pay attention if I'm starving. That's just fact. So we have to take care of physical things, right? It would be nice to say when you get baptized, you don't have to worry about any physical things, but that's not the case, right? Your physical day, your health, your emotional well-being, your financial situation could impact how you worship or how you serve God daily. You could have such a bad situation happening at your house that you therefore can't even pray anymore. Right? This is just the reality that we live in. For when you go into a different mindset, like hopefully, that's why I like the new year so much, right? Because God said, behold, I make all things new. So you have an opportunity to have a different outcome over this calendar year or however long God allow you to live than you had last year. But who is the driving force in that? You. You are going to be the reason you either have a good 2019 or a bad 2019, physically, emotionally, financially, or spiritually. You, not the economy, not your parents, not because of your race or your gender, how you were raised, what part of town you live. There's people that have overcame every boundary in this physical world and still reach success in all four of those categories or one of those four categories. You know why? Because they fixated their mind to a goal. Right? I want us to be more goal oriented. The world should not out-goal you. Right? What are your goals? If I start asking people, what's your goal? Like, what is your goal for this year? I feel like I say check out. When I say check out, it means like you already threw up your hands and accept your life to be what it is. I feel like too many Christians do that. Too many Christians plateau, especially people who have families, because when you first start a family, you're on this trajectory. You're looking to achieve something. Male or female, you have in your mind what it means to be successful for a family. Usually in America, once people achieve whatever that is, 1, 2 kids, dog, cat, house, whatever, they just do like this. Right? I want us to keep doing like this. I want some of us who have given up to stop giving up, right? If you were poor in 2018, I don't want you to be poor in 2019, but neither does your God. Like, why have you already said, well, I'm not going to have money, so that's just how it be? let's say some of you are 40 years old. What if God allow you to live to 110? You mean to tell me that you willing to live on this earth, destitute, poor, relying on someone else for the next, what, 70 years? Some of us live like the Thessalonians who feel like, oh, remember Thessalonians said, oh, quit your job because any moment Jesus is going to come back. Right? Remember when they were looking up to heaven and what the angel told them? What y'all doing? Oh, he's going to come back. Not right now. You got to go live your life. Like, that's my point. So some of us physically, we have physical ailments and we check out of life. What if God allowed you to live another 40 years with that physical ailment? Without healing you from it, but what if you still live? Right? Some of us have emotional burden and we allow these things to bring us down. Right? So as a church body, one of the things I would encourage each and every one of us, individuals, families, set some goals this month that you are willing to achieve. Some of us, our physical, our financial, and our emotional are hindering us spiritually. Right? So when people make some analogies about physical things or financial things, hopefully you can understand that, because if you have no money to give, right, to your household, it's going to impact the flow of your household. That's just how it works. Young people struggle with that, right? Teenagers struggle with that concept. But an adult knows if we have two people and then it drops to one person, or no people have any income, or we're on a fixed income, it's very hard to progress as a house, right? When you don't have, it impacts your mind because you start thinking about the things that you can't do. Therefore, you don't dream because you don't have money to do them. See? So now it bleeds over into your emotional standpoint, right? It's very hard to think that I'm made in the image of God if I don't have physically, because I'm always relying on someone else. So therefore, it's hard for me to think I can do anything because I can list an array of things that I can't do because I don't have money. That's how that could impact you. I don't think some of us think that way. When I say some of us, it's not necessarily us in this room, it's Christians as a whole. I don't think some Christians realize that being poor could negatively impact your spiritual walk with Christ, because it will put your mind into a mindset of a I can't mindset. But you serve a I can God. You don't serve a I can't God. But when you don't have, you can't. That's how that could impact your spiritual life, and it could impact how and often and what you pray over, because you may be burdened by physical, financial, and emotional things that could impact you spiritually. So I agree, it's not wrong to pray for those things. I'm saying is some of those things that are burdens to us in previous years, why not pray and focus on a way to improve those things? Right? Because those things can impact you spiritually. When you're sick, it's very hard to be spiritually minded. When you're struggling emotionally, it's hard to be spiritually minded. And when you're struggling financially, Lord knows it's hard to be spiritually minded. It's very difficult for that woman to give the 2 mites and therefore not know when or what she would ever get ever again. That's difficult. That take a level of faith and dedication that people who had multiple mites couldn't do. That's why Jesus said she gave the most, even though she gave the least, because she gave all that she had, and therefore she put 100% of her trust into God. That's why I would encourage some of us to get out of our lifeboats like Peter. Some of us asleep in the boat. Wake up, get out onto the waves where Jesus is. Was Jesus in the boat or he was on the waves? He was on the waves. Some of us are too comfortable so we don't grow. When Jesus is saying, come over here, we walking on water, we thinking, no, I can't do it. Get that out of your mind. Right? I see people in the world go from nothing to something every day. And I see a lot of Christians I see a lot of Christians that spiritual. I see a lot of Christians been baptized 5 years, pray the same, teach the same, look the same, dress the same, talk the same. Look, you serve a God of increase. He said, behold, I made what? Some things, all things new. Right? Don't be the same. Right? Grow. Don't let your family be the same. Right? Grow. This is the whole point of Christianity, is about growth. And that's something that I would encourage us here to think more and bring that into a family mantra. Your family should be grown. No family, no last name in this congregation should be the same in 2019 as you were in 2018. Nobody. You have to grow, right? If you don't grow and you don't constantly move, old people say an idle mind is what? Devil's playground, right? Or a workshop, right? When you have water flowing, things are moving. When you have a pond that don't flow, what happened to the top? Algae get on there, right? Some of us have emotional algae on our brain. That's why we forget things and we so foggy, because our mind not sharp and clear, because steel sharpens steel. Some of us have to remove ourselves from dull algae people in our phone and start focusing on steel people, because Solomon said steel will sharpen steel. But if all you do, successful people say this, all you do is go home and watch Netflix or play video games or on your phone playing games, or if all you do is playing, you doing childish things, you never going to grow your mind. That's why successful people say you should go home and start working on something else that will be productive for you. What about spiritual people? What do spiritual people say? So that's something that I wanted to just start today's class off with, is just encouragement, because it bleeds into a lot of the comments and things that we have been making over the last several weeks. And even those who put in prayer requests on Sunday, those prayer requests are going to involve action from you. What if God said already, I'm ready to answer yes to everyone who put a prayer request in, but you got to get out of the boat? Would you be willing to take the risk and bet on God like the woman who put the 2 mites? That's what I'm saying for us to be encouraged. All right, let's go to this next chapter 13. Chapter 13. It's page 79. We'll start. Anybody would like to read these 3 paragraphs on 79 and up to 70, up to 80? Yes, go ahead.
Many years ago, when I was preaching in Houston, Florida, I preached a sermon on the power of prayer. I thought it was a pretty good sermon. At the end of service, Albert saw me, approached me. Albert was one of the kindest men you could meet. He was always very complimentary of my preaching. So it was much to my surprise when he approached me after sermon and prayer with a serious look on his face. I don't believe in the power of prayer, he said with a bold seriousness. This shocked me. I had heard him already. I had been in his house and prayed with him before mealtime. He would often visit me in his office, and we would always pray together. He would get down on his knees and lead some of the most heartfelt prayers I've ever heard. So it shocked me to hear the words, I don't believe in the power of prayer. What had happened? What changed since we last prayed together? My only response was, profound, I know. He continued by saying, I believe in the power of God, therefore I pray. What a profound statement. It's not unusual to hear people who don't believe in God say, our thoughts and prayers are with you. The power of prayer is not in the words we utter, but in the God who hears them. And to those of you thinking that Albert was just arguing semantics, he wasn't. If it is not attached to our faith in God, there is no power in the act of prayer itself. When we pray, do we really believe that God has the power to do something about it? When we call out to God, we have the attention of the creator of the universe. But like with any conversation, we have to start somewhere. How do you start a conversation with God?
Oh, this is a good passage, a good section to use for an Old Testament passage. Remember, in multiple cases, not even just one, where you had a prophet or a man or woman of God and a challenge, a spiritual challenge, where both sides were praying. It's just that one was praying to the true and living God and the other people were praying to idols. So this kind of excerpt here makes sense. Okay, next section, from conversation starters all the way to, you can stop at conversation stoppers. So somebody read the half of 80 to the top half of 81. Anybody like to read that? Yeah, go ahead.
If anyone ever had a reason to struggle in talking with God, it was the Apostle Paul. Before becoming an apostle, Paul relentlessly persecuted the church. After his conversion, Paul often talked of how he was undeserving of the grace of God. When you talk to a person to whom you don't feel like you deserve to talk to, but finding the words can be a challenge. Yet, Paul often talked about his prayer life, and it appears he had no difficulty finding the right words. This is because the majority of Paul's prayers were focused on others, not himself. I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened so that you will know what is the hope of his calling. Ephesians 1:18. For this reason, I bow my knees before the Father, that he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with the power through his Spirit. Ephesians 3:14-16. And this I pray, that your love may abound still more and more in real knowledge and all discernment. Philippians 1:9. For this reason also, since the day we heard of it, we have not ceased to pray for you and to ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will and all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so that you will walk in a manner worthy of the Lord. Colossians 1:9-10. Talking about ourselves and our needs can be difficult because we don't want to come across as selfish. Yet when we come before God with supplications on the behalf of others, God senses our selflessness and complete reliance on him. Also, it helps us to recognize that we aren't coming before our God freely. Thus, the conversation with him becomes more natural. There is truth in the old expression that joy is found in putting Jesus first, others second, and yourself last. Paul understood that this was the way to start a conversation with God.
Thanks. Yeah, that joy acronym people usually teach kids in Sunday school. That joy, Jesus, putting Jesus first, others second, and yourself last. Something that you can use. Also, like what you were hearing from Sister Karen's comment when she was having a series of bad days and started just being thankful. Another flip side to that, you may say, well, I'm so struggling, I can't even find the words to be thankful. You can use this approach, right? With her same mindset, but this approach is instead, I'm going to just wake up, or I'm going to spend some time praying for others. I'm going to spend 5 minutes. I'm going to say a prayer from start to finish. I'm not going to mention anything for myself. I'm just going to pray for others. So that's a good way to kind of get your mind off of it. Okay, let me go to this next section, just so we can have all of our comments with this whole chapter, because there's a couple of gems here. I'm going to read this one a little slow because there's three sections here. So we're going to read all from 81 to 83, but we'll need to break down a little bit for these three sections. Conversation stoppers. I would be remiss in writing this book if I did not share with you several obstacles to a powerful prayer life. And the first one might surprise you. The first obstacle to prayer is learning about prayer. Wait, what? Someone actually said that out loud once when I was teaching on prayer. Let me clarify. The first thing we must all learn about prayer is that the constant temptation in prayer is to talk about it, read about it, learn about it, study it, perhaps write about it, and somehow never actually do it. Reading a book on prayer is of little value if you are not actually praying, right? So those of us who have been even one chapter, let alone the whole book, right? Hopefully you have been praying more or taking some of these tidbits from this chapter and applying to your prayer. If you went through one chapter or 13 chapters without changing any aspect of your prayer, then that's when old people say you missed your blessing. Some people get confused when people say that to them. What they mean is if you sat in a class about prayer for X amount of weeks and never got better at praying, that was your fault. Just like if you go to school and you have a good teacher and you get bad grades, that's not the school system's fault. That's your fault. That's how life works, because you had a good teacher. Therefore, if you would have put the work in, you would have been able to do better than had you had a bad teacher, but you were around information, but you didn't increase with it. So that first obstacle may seem strange, but I think from Bible study, we fall victim to that all the time. It's hard to apply these things. The second obstacle is prayer is lack of willingness to be a student of prayer. When we learn something, we hear a fact, store it away in our minds, and then claim that we know it. But there is a difference between learning something and knowing it. When you have learned something, you are finished with it. You can tuck it away into that category of things you now know. When you are a student of something, you are engaged in a process of learning it continually, allowing it to embrace you, to shape you, to define you. Learners seek to master their subject matter. Students seek to be mastered by it. I'll reread that. Learners seek to be to master their subject matter. Students seek to be mastered by it. This may sound kind of philosophical, so let me make it practical. Many marriages fail because spouses are not students of each other. I must be a student of my wife. I must devote myself to the never-ending search for what makes her, her. As soon as I cease being her student and think I have learned her, I take her for granted and miss much of what is special about her. Being a student of prayer means being a student of God. We must be on a never-ending search to find out what makes him, him. That goes back to my scriptures with Romans, right? When you're struggling with your faith, you're missing the point of who God is. You're no longer looking at God in relationship terms. You're looking at church as somewhere you go, and it's easy to stop going somewhere. People about to do it with the fitness gyms in about any day now, right? Because I just go there. But it's going to be hard for me to stop being a male or stop being black because I'm already those things. See the difference, right? I don't go somewhere to be black. But see, if you go to church, it's easy to stop. But if you are the church, how are you going to stop being what you are? And this thing about relationship is so, so key. You'll see these sort of things spiritually in relationship based off of what come out of people's mouth. Meaning if you ask some basic questions about certain things, whether they're Christianity or those people who are married or even dating, you can tell where their mind is. Remember the Romans were talking about setting your mind somewhere based off of little kind of buzzwords that they say or come out of her mouth. Like, for example, or his mouth. Usually, right, when there's a grievance of a woman in the relationship that the male is not paying attention or going the extra mile like he used to, or even showing any level of affection through gifts or anything whatsoever. And it comes down to a question of knowing or being aware. Usually the person gets on the defensive and say what they already know. I know what she's going to say. I know how she feels. I know what she likes. That sounds a lot like this. That's like the difference between knowing the scriptures and living the scriptures. I feel like those of us who have been around Christianity for a while, we already know the scriptures, and everyone who have the ability to reason already know right and wrong. So we're not sitting up here studying Sunday and Wednesday, week by week to know. We already know, but are we living? Right? That's what this is talking about. But this concept is vitally important. Especially, I would say this is for dating, because people waste time in dating. You know right now, I don't care if you just met somebody yesterday, if they're a student of you or not, you should bounce from the relationship because they're not going to change. I'm a strong believer of that. It's one thing to change like, hey, I didn't realize that. But if somebody is not seeing you, I never seen somebody change that. Not seeing you, like not like you say, like if a spouse be like, did you not see me? And the person said, oh, I didn't even. It's very rare they're gonna wake up one day and start seeing their spouse, right? So when you're dating, you can tell if somebody sees you, if somebody is trying to learn you, or they just in it to win it. It's two different things. That's what this is talking about. I think sometimes people wait to the marriage part and miss this in the dating part, especially for our society. Is it easy? No, it's difficult because you might be seeing the other person, right? You might be a student of the other person. But if the person isn't for you, you need to run because it's going to make marriage very difficult because we call that one-sided or lopsided relationship. That's God. God is for us and see us. We don't be for God though, right? God know us. He is a student of us, but we don't be a student for him. That's why the relationship be one-sided and lopsided. That's why in John, we're start talking about people who are struggling, but then it's saying that God will always remain faithful even when we're faithless. Why? Because he can't deny himself. Some of us deny ourselves in relationships for the sake of a relationship that you are the only one trying to make better. The other person doesn't see anything wrong with the relationship. That's a danger. So this concept here, especially those people who are married, you definitely should go home and touch this up. Because like, are you a student of your spouse? right? Do you know your spouse? Or are you constantly trying to know them, their ins and outs? Like, that is the concept of becoming one, right? One is you can't separate. That was Jesus's whole point. He said, I pray that y'all are one the way me and the Father are one, because we never gonna separate. See? Right? That's why when God said he hates divorce, that's the concept he's saying is he goes into relationship 100%. He don't go in with a plan B or an exit strategy, right? And that's when he had Hosea in his situation explain that to the Israelites. So this is a good practical thing, because sometimes it's hard for us to turn these spiritual philosophical things into everyday practical use. But I think this one is very good for us to see whether you're married, whether you're dating, or just a concept, right? Even career-wise, like, are you doing something, or are you trying to allow what you do to grow you continuously? A lot of us just do something at a job, right? That's the difference between a job and a career, right? A job is a 9 to 5, but a career is something that you have advancement, like you see yourself doing long term. So this is definitely something that I would encourage everyone. This learners seek to master their subject matter. Students seek to be mastered by it, right? And I think that's the difference between some people who are focused on showiness with Christianity, like denominationalism, some people who struggle with that there, and those people are who are Bible students, right? It's not about lofty prayers, but it's about change. Anybody have anything for this? Yeah.
You know, when you look at this from a student perspective of prayer, prayer is not about needs. It's about God's ability to work things out in my life. And I unfortunately, we're not taught that. We come from a society, the majority of people come to the church from the world. And those of us who, you know, had the spiritual luxury of being brought up in the church also was affected by the things of the world that are in the church. I mean, you guys that have been in church your whole entire life, from kindergarten to, you know, high school, college, and the workforce, y'all heard it all, seen it all, and experienced it all. So you were affected by it too. And for a student to learn, most students only want to just get by. I mean, once you achieve a certain percentage of knowledge, you kind of like skate through. I mean, it's only different, that level of difference between a person's knowledge and ability to obtain more knowledge and master it only comes from an inner desire. Prayer is like that too. Prayer, Jonah knew that he would pray and what would happen. He had mastered prayer through experiencing it through faith. He was in a situation that he knew he was going to get out of. He prayed because he knew prayer would get him out of the situation. A student comes to that level of prayer. He knows that a student can walk away from prayer through faith, knowing that God is going to fix this, take care of this, make this happen. Now, that's maturity with some people, and it's learned prayer behavior in a congregation that prays like that. If a congregation is praying and fasting, you know that your level of prayer has to step its game up. If you're just from a mediocre congregation that don't pray a lot, your life reflects that. Now, getting back to the home and relationships, it's the same thing. How important is prayer to you and the benefit of praying under certain circumstances? So when y'all look at this, when it says that, when the author is trying to get us to see that the subject matter that we bring to God as a student, we should understand that the subject matter itself is not the issue. It's where we're taking the prayer. God is the issue. He should be glorified. Because a lot of things, as you alluded to in your comments, we get ourselves in a mess. It's like, man, I done messed up so bad. I think I need to call God because he's the only one that's going to fix this stuff. And, you know, deep down inside, I know I screwed up. So I just need him to navigate this stuff, to help me along so I can at least see my way out of this.
Yeah. I would definitely say one thing for that is sports is a good analogy for that. If you're a sports person, right? If you think of basketball, like a Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant, LeBron, if you think of soccer, a Messi, Cristiano, right? Pele, right? If you think of hockey, Gretzky, those are people that people be like, even I don't know the sports, those are the great. Those are people like when you see somebody retire, they cry. You thinking, why are you crying over a game? It's because they love basketball. Now, there's a lot of people in the NBA, but it's only a couple people. Like when you see them retiring, they in tears because they love the game, right? That's some things that people don't understand about even those people that get caught up in the street life. There's some people that do something because they have to do it, but there's some people that love the game. They could have stopped what they were doing, but they can't because they love it. And we look at that and be like, wow, like you're that into whatever you're doing. That is that level of this learners seek to master their subject matter, but students seek to be mastered by it, right? Those athletes seek to be mastered by their sport. Other people just happy getting to the league. But those elite players are not happy with just being a professional whatever sport, right? They want to be the best. And in order to be the best, you have to allow the game to change you, right? To mold you into the best version of yourself. That's why I love sports so much, not just for the competitiveness, but to see the level of effort that you see on professional level, that they start out on an equal playing field from on paper, but it's not equal because some people have a different level of desire, attention to detail, and commitment to the game. That's how Christianity is. Some people have a different level of desire, attention to detail, and commitment to being a Christian. Some of us just happy being saved, right? Some people like, I'm just good money because I got baptized 10 years ago. Other people trying to be a better father, a better mother, a better this, a better that. See the difference? That's the struggle. If you don't cultivate your mind to want to be that, that's why I was talking about this. What will happen is after a while, when you will transition to this, and this level of Christianity has the highest propensity to fall away. That's why I always say is don't be like that. Because when you're not growing spiritually, it don't matter what your last name is. It don't matter how many Bible studies a week you go to or have, or how good your attendance is. If you individually aren't growing spiritually, it's very easy to fall away. But if you always getting better, if somebody said, hey man, let's stop going, you like, stop going where? That's how you got some people in the league that last 4 years, and some people be in the league 16 years. And you thinking, man, you've been made a lot of money. How come you don't quit? It's not about money, right? It stopped being about money seasons ago. They're in it to win it this way. See, that's that progression. That's what I'm saying is if we can get our mindset focused on this to allow God to shape and mold us like clay to what he would have us to be, then our lives would be way better. Yes, go ahead, Brent.
I just wanted to say that some people have drive, and some people have driven.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
Some guys are driven and nothing stops them. They keep it going. But I know in two cases, they are extremely top-heavy spiritual people. Because they know that God brings them along. You don't just make it alone. Top-heavy spiritual.
Yeah, that's a good way to kind of sum up what we were talking about, is this concept of driving driven. All right, let me read this third section. The third obstacle to prayer is our expectations of prayer. We pray with wrong expectations. Anytime we think that the actual words of our prayers will somehow overrule the desired will of God for our lives. I have been living with back pain for 18 years. As I write the last few paragraphs of this book, I'm waiting for the doctor's office to call and schedule a surgical procedure that will hopefully take away my pain. Here is the difficult reality, however. It may not be God's will for me to live a pain-free life. It may be his will for me to bring his glory through my pain. Think back of the question that we started the class with. The human side of me doesn't like this idea, right? Sister Nadine was making comments to this. Neither did the human side of Jesus or Paul, for that matter. The Apostle Paul wrote of a time when he begged God to take away this thing in his life that was afflicting him. Though Paul never identifies his thorn in the flesh, we don't have to know what his was, because we know what ours is. We prayed for God to get rid of it. Sometimes your thorn in the flesh is a person, place, or thing. More than 3 times he prayed. But maybe God is saying to us the exact same thing he said to Paul. My grace is enough or sufficient for you. It's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. This passage is powerful because it's the story of how Paul came to abandon his own point of view concerning his weakness and embrace God's point of view. In other words, prayer forms us gradually and helps us become containers capable of carrying the presence of God within us. When praying, don't always expect to be healed. Expect to be used. I'll read that one again. When praying, don't always expect to be healed. Expect to be used. Prayer is not a magical force that instantly transforms people or situations by the words of the conversation. Prayer is not an incantation. So when I pray and ask God to help me know the right things to say on Sunday morning when I preach, the far more important issue is not whether I'm preaching at the exact moment, but whether or not I live a life of conversation with God. Often we live however we want and then expect prayer to work like some kind of magic potion, expecting it to change the consequences of our ungodly actions and decisions. That's true. We might chuckle at the child who prays for an A on his final exam when he never studied, but we must remember that prayer does not work that way for us either. Prayer orients us towards God. The more we talk to God, the more we understand it. And isn't that what we really want? So that concept of kids asking for an A, I use that example all the time and didn't study. People do that. That's when I be saying about your family. People be at, oh, I pray that my family come to church. Okay, what are you doing about it? Oh, nothing. But I just hope one day they wake up and want to be saved. Like, life don't work that way. I pray I can be more financially stable. Great. Have you done anything about it? Nah. So you praying for a miracle, right? I pray to, be healthy. Are you changing anything with your diet? Nah, I still eat the same way and I don't exercise. So you're praying for a miracle. Like some of us are putting miracles on the prayer request, right? Like a kid that's looking for an A, that kid looking for a miracle because they know before they even go into the classroom, they never study. So basically they're saying, God, please perform a miracle in my life today and let me pass, right? I feel like the kids be more honest because they know they didn't study. But some of us pretend like we're doing, but we're not. So this section here, good. Okay, any closing comments in these 3 sections here about the conversation stoppers or anything overall from this chapter? Next week, obviously, we'll focus on the questions, but anybody have anything to highlight? Yes.
When prayer is difficult, it's difficult because we fight God on his issues, and he already warned us that our thoughts are not his thoughts and our ways are not his ways. And sometimes we get a little nosy in God's business, and God is trying to get us to see some things, and he need us because he need to use us to do his business. And I never forgot when my friends came home from the military. I had 2 friends that went to the military after high school. I had no intentions of going, but they came back and they told me how tough boot camp was mentally. And I experienced that when I went to the State Police Academy. I see why I didn't like the military. And they said that the concept of oneness was something that they struggled with, and the drill sergeant knew that. He knew that I had to get them away from civilian thinking and get them into a military mode where they were reacting to save people around them and go charge the cause. So when you're praying, God's business is what should be primarily focusing in on that prayer time. You say, okay, it's not about the issue that I'm having right now. It's God being glorified in what's going on in my life and around me. And right now, he has to use me. And it's excuse me, God. We always do it, excuse me, God, but what I'm going through means much more than what your agenda is. and we can't see that. That's why prayer is so difficult, because we don't analyze prayer from God's perspective. We analyze prayer from our perspective and the timetable that we're on. We just happen to say that to God. Like right now, with all of us praying, when we pray for the prayer requests in a minute here, we just happen to say that to him right now. He's been up all Wednesday dealing with our issues. We don't think that. We just happen to bring the issues to him individually, and we got here collectively. But those are not his issues. So prayer, from his perspective, is coming at him at a rate where those that are praying to him are unbelievers in the fact that he can do something about what they are asking for. So he has no urgency to do those things, because he's been dealing with those things in us all day long. We just happen at that particular time, 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock, revealing our emotions to him, when spiritually he's been dealing with those things for some a long time. You know what I'm saying? That's why prayer is so hard, because the perspective of prayer is not understood by those that pray, only the one that's receiving.
Yeah, that's why relationships are hard. You talking about being married to someone who is another person. Again, as a society around the world, we minimize that. Like, however you were raised was how you raised. We're not going to look at nothing the same. That's hard. I would wish Christians of all people wake up. Too many of y'all see two people holding hands. Oh, they'll be good together. Stop. Who said they'll be good together? Like, you should be like, no, the two of you won't be good together. Why? Because me and my spouse not good together, and we look like a lot of the two of y'all. Because it's hard. You talking about each person would have to actively, daily deny themselves and think of the other. Now, again, I said this Sunday, show me relationship could do that 100%. Nowhere. Like, you saying all the life you've been you, stop being you. Now think about her think about him. Some people say, look, they don't last what? Not even a weekend. Some people get married on a Friday, and by Monday, they're like, what? I'm out of here. So that concept I like, because it's we don't look at things from the other person's point of view in our physical. Right? And that's the same thing spiritual. That's why when you were talking, I wrote this: live according to your design. Who determines your design? Yourself or your creator? Right? A car. Do a car like the cartoon movie decide whatever they're going to be? Or do a car manufacturer say, this is a coupe, this is a pickup truck, and this is an SUV? Therefore, I'm designing these three different vehicles to have different functions. Don't tow things with a coupe. If you need to tow, you need to get an SUV or a pickup truck. If you need to load a lot of things, you need to get a pickup truck. Oh, I want the comfort of a coupe, but I want to also load and tow. You need a 4-cab pickup truck. I don't want it, it's too big. Well, then we have a problem, because I don't design a El Camino. Are those still on the road? No, nobody want that. Nobody want no half car, half pickup truck no more. Therefore, you have to buy a car and use it for its design purpose. Are you living your life according to the design that God has for you? That's what I was saying earlier. Are you living a life according to what you want to do? Right? Is your life according to what God has designed for you today? What way you live today, was that what God had in store for you? Or is that what you had in store? See, we have to ask ourselves that, right? Are you living a life right now today, 2019, according to God's design for you? Or God say, that is a coupe doing coupe things. That's a pickup truck doing pickup truck things. Or are you saying, hey, I always was a coupe, but really in my heart, I'm an SUV? Because that's what people say now. Right? And the car manufacturer be like, who told you that? Me. I felt always, I never identified as a coupe, but now I'm an SUV, so I want to do SUV things. That don't work, because God is already have a path for you. But are you living according to your design? That's why I wrote this under this drive versus driven, right? To have that some people are driven towards that goal we talked about. And some people, you gotta pull them, like when you first get a puppy and they don't want to be outside and you dragging them. That's how some of us, God gotta drag us sometime through life. Why? Right? When we should be ready. God, where are we going? Right? Because a good puppy ready. You go here, they walk, they stop. You go back here, they come here, right? That's a puppy who is in tune with the owner, right? That's the difference between being untrained and trained. Some of us live untrained spiritual lives. We're not trained. Us and God be over here and we be over there. That's what I'm saying. When you see that in dating, the boyfriend over here, girlfriend over there, oh, not gonna work. Husband over here, wife over here, not gonna work. Parent over here, children over here, house not gonna work. House divided, can't stand. Right? We know these things to be true, but we don't speak on them because emotions are involved. I want us to spiritually change that. This year as a congregation, live according to the design God has in store for you, not based off of things statistically that the world or even other people in church would say, this is how you should live. Live according to how God would have you live. That's how people change the world. Because the whole world be saying, you shouldn't do that, you should do this. And somebody be like, really? Because I always thought we should be living this way. And then when that person died, what do we say? That was a genius. But while the person was living, we gave them so much trouble because it's hard to see and vibe with people that are living a life past what we see, right? It's hard to identify with people that live beyond what they see because we're not there yet. But I would encourage all of us to move ourselves, our family, and as a congregation to move towards a more spiritual driven, focused life. And God will blow your mind with beyond your expectations for every physical, emotional, financial, and spiritual thing that is in your life. But if you live a life according to the way the world feel your design should be, never will reach your full potential, ever. I don't care how successful you are. But you got to believe that. That's why when Jesus said, if you have faith, you can move a mountain. But if you don't believe you can move the mountain, it's not the mountain's fault or my fault as Jesus. It's your lack of faith. This year, believe that God can move the mountains out of your life and they're already gone. See? Don't believe he can move them and you will have a worse year 2019 than 2018. And in a year, people can say, tell me if I'm right or not. It's up to you what kind of year you're going to have, what kind of relationship you're going to have, what kind of job. There's some people this year who are going to start out homeless and next year be millionaires. Some people in this country. And there's some people that's going to be millionaires and be homeless 2020. This country. There's some people that's going to be in a bad way physically, overweight, health issues. Next year, they're going to be not even on medication. This country. Gonna be some people. Every day we see testimonies of people like that where we be like, wow, we're wowing at the end result, but we need to wow at the effort, right? Don't wow at the end result, right? Mostly sometimes men do it, but the Transformation Tuesday, right? When you posting and you looking on this side is a big version and this side is a thin version and you like, wow, right? But then they usually put the weeks. But the eyes don't go to the weeks, right? Because sometimes the weeks say 52 and you thinking, I don't have 52 weeks. I need to get to the skinny side by Valentine's Day. But that means you should have had that goal. See, boom. Because this transformation may take the full 52 weeks. But you thinking, I don't have 52 weeks to go to get to this side. So therefore, every week that goes by, I'm going to stay on this side, even though the time's still going to go. That's what I love about time. Whether you make a decision in your mind to change your life in 2019, it's not like God going to stop your life. This year going to go by whether you become a better person or not. The 52 weeks going to go by whether the person transformed their weight or not. What will happen is 2020 going to come around and you're going to still be on this larger side of Transformation Tuesday. And now more people on the skinny side. That's what happened with the read the Bible in a year. Then you think, what? Man, the whole year went by. I could have read my Bible. Whole year went by. I could have had a better job. I could have been in better relationships. I could have been healthier. I could have been a stronger Christian. Yeah. Right? What if God is saying, right? What if your prayer request you put in, God said you could have had that. That's the thing that's painful. What if God, whatever you're asking him today, said, you asking me like I'm preventing you from having that? What if he's saying you then could have had whatever is on your prayer request? We about to pray over, but that's all based on you and how you view it. So I would definitely encourage you. I know we have some prayer requests, and I do see the different focus on prayer, at least from those of us who have been coming Wednesday, because this book was challenging in a lot of ways. So I would encourage you to lift up all things to prayer, and just echo what I was saying on Sunday is those of us who are struggling in our life, especially if your family is struggling, start putting in specific prayer requests. Because if you turn a blind eye to foolishness in your home, it's going to bleed out and it's going to impact you. It's going to impact us emotionally, but we don't live there. It's going to impact you. If you don't have peace at your home, it's very hard to have peace out into the world. So always use prayer, like Sister Karen was saying, somebody else, can you pray for me? So Sister Beulah helped her, because right now I can't pray for myself. But imagine if she didn't accept any prayers or have that conversation with Sister Beulah. She would have been struggling to now. So just look at those things. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prayer requests that we'll go over.